thou dost for I provide. God speaks to me, his voice so reassuring, that if I'm called to tread the shadowed vale, I'll fear no ill. His rod and staff sufficient to cope with foes, no matter what sail. Thanks be to thee, O ever-loving Father, with thee to bless my lust and shall prevail. God speaks to me, oh, let me gladly listen to words that clearly all along life's way. His healing balm assuages every sorrow. My cup o'erflows with mercies new each day. Thanks be to thee, O ever-loving Father, within thy house I'll dwell in love always. Thank you. Oh, do we have some? Okay, I'm supposed to give the announcements. Do we have any first-time visitors this morning with us? If you'd raise your hand, we'll give you a packet that gives you some information about Unity. And thank you for coming today. We welcome you. Unity is a praying church. And if you have any needs for prayer, you can write it out on a slip that's out in the front hall, and there's a little box that you can put your prayer request in. Elizabeth will pray over your request for a week, and then it will be sent on to Unity in Missouri, where they will pray for your request for 30 days. So it's a lot of prayer work, and a lot of good blessings come from that prayer. And if you would, we'll do our affirmation of oneness. The Christ in me meets the Christ in you, and we work together for the glory of God. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, WG, for that wonderful music. And thank you all for being here. And for everyone that's on Zoom or YouTube or wherever you tune in to us, I want to say thank you for taking the time to do that. It's always good to come together and to celebrate the day. It's a beautiful, beautiful day today. And I think some of our folks are traveling to the mountains and seeing all the beautiful leaves, but we have beautiful leaves right in our own backyard here in Winston-Salem today. I noticed that this morning. So we give thanks for that. Also, you have a lot of good books in the bookstore, don't you, Pat? Yes, someone was asking about that this week. Okay. Pat said that the Daily Word is already in for November and December, so you may want to get the Daily Word. And this is the one for last month and this month. So this month's almost coming to a close right now. But as we come together this morning, let us just settle into that heart space. Begin to recognize that wherever we are, God is. And that divine presence is right here, right now with us. Wherever you are, in your home, your car, sitting out on the deck, God's presence is always with you. We just need to recognize it. And as we recognize it, begin to feel that peace that surrounds you, that love that is enfolding within you, that power that protects you always. And recognize that the divine is not afar off, but is right with you. That divine sonship, that Christ presence is within you. Within you. Feel the freedom of that Christ within you, around you, working through you. And I would like to share a daily word with you as you just relax and let go. May these words be your words if you choose. I am free to express the Christ that is within me. As a spiritual being, I am so blessed with all the riches that come from living a God-centered life. Inner riches include divine love, wisdom, compassion, and joy. All I could ever need to be a perfect manifestation of God is already within me. No matter the situation or the circumstances, I am free to respond in positive ways. I am free to meet discord with peace and uncertainty with faith. I practice gratitude and I make time to uplift others with kind words and actions. There is no limit to the blessings I am free to share with others. In this way, I fully experience the love and the grace of God within me always. I stay centered in spirit, living from my Christ nature. I rise above all earthly concerns and know the sweetest freedom within myself. In 2 Corinthians 3:17, we read, now the Lord is spirit, and where the spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Our loving Creator, we breathe in your life, your love, your wisdom, all that you are. And as we take in your wonderful presence, we also allow it to flow forth from us, each and every one of us. May we recognize that the light of divinity rests in us, that we live and breathe and have our being through the Christ that is within us. As we more fully awaken to that presence that never leaves us, that never forsakes us, we can find that security, that trust, that patience of knowing all is well and all is in divine order. I hear myself so often saying these words because to look out or to look in so often during this time of 2020, 2021, things have seemed so chaotic, but I know you're in the midst of it all, God. I don't know what's coming today, tomorrow, or next week, but I know you do. And I know you are within each and every one of us. And as we get closer and closer and closer to you in spirit, our spirit communes with your spirit. And all fear and anxiety dissolves because we know that we're in your hands, that you hold us all close to you, dear God. May we hold you close to us. May we discover moment by moment, day by day, more and more awareness of who we are in you and you in us. Lead us and guide us into all truth, into all truth. that we may know the truth, and the truth will set us free. I surrender to you this day, dear God. May my ego self be set aside, that I can feel your Holy Spirit moving in and through each of us this day, guiding each one to higher heights in you. For this, I do give thanks in and through the name and the power of the living Christ. Amen. 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 This week, the little flash of the symbol of Jesus at the well, sitting there alone, it seemed. And it said that he was resting there while his disciples went out to find meat, to get something to eat. And he had been journeying. They'd been on a journey. Said that he came from Galilee. And they were now in Samaria. And as we began to look at the metaphysical meanings of some of these places that Jesus was traveling, to me, I feel like I'm thinking about in John, I think it's John chapter 4, is where he meets the Samaritan lady at the well, or she comes to meet him, however that went. But within Jesus, the man Jesus, was the presence of the I am, the great I am, the God of all creation. And Jesus was growing in wisdom and knowledge and strength. And he had been journeying through Galilee. We all have to go through certain stages to reach that point where we truly meet that illumined one, that divine one, the presence of God right with us, that's speaking to us, that's sharing wisdom and knowledge with us. So as he was sitting at the well, Jacob's well, a woman came by later in the afternoon. She hadn't been there that morning when most of the women come. I think she was maybe avoiding some of the people there. Maybe she was looked on or looked down because she was a person of a mixed breed. She was a Samaritan. Now, Galilee means a place of praise, a place of rejoicing, a place of beginning to recognize the power of the divine. And in that, we start coming to that place that we leave our personalities behind, and we begin to get into that flow of singing, of rejoicing, of being glad for the day, glad for opportunities. We come to that place, the more joy we manifest within our hearts, the more we begin to feel that presence of God. We begin to feel close, and we begin to search out, and we want to get closer. The song's coming to me, I'm hearing it in the background, just a closer walk with thee. Just a closer walk with thee, Lord. Let me know you better. Let me feel you more. Let me interact with you. And I know all of you have been at that place before, when you begin to feel that presence and you begin to feel that song in your heart, everything starts to lift up in you. Well, Jesus was already at that place. And so he was filled with that overflowing rejoicing of life and the presence of all there is. Then he came into Samaria. And there, what had been going on, it was a place that was a high place, and it was a place where the Israelites had dwelled, and they still did, but they were taken into captivity. And as they were taken into captivity, what happened, there seemed to be a split, kind of like in today's world. There was an energy split where in that captivity, they were taken into a place of looking at the material things, looking at the intellectual things, reasoning things out, having many gods, because this was called a group of people that were heathen people. Anybody that wasn't an Israelite, they were the heathens. They believed different than the Israelites did. The Israelites were the symbol of worshiping the one source. They believed in one God, the God of all creation. As Moses had met that light or that energy up on the mountain. And he asked, who is this, when he was looking at this burning bush up really high when he made it there. And the answer was, I am. The great I am became the name of God for him. So they began to worship this unseen God, this great I am presence. But later when they went into captivity, there were those that had all these idols, all these different gods, all these different forms that they worshiped. But yet there was a priest there from the Israelite nation who still taught of the one God. So there in Samaria was the two different religions, but they were mixed together. And in this, Jesus was sitting there, and this lady came by, and she came to get water. And as we go and see her talking with Jesus, we can understand why she may not want to run around with some of the other women or socialize with them. It's because they looked down on her. They saw her as one that claimed to be an Israelite, one that claimed to worship the true God, but yet she was of mixed blood. So they felt, no, she truly couldn't be a true seeker. She couldn't really be following after God. Something's wrong with this woman. So here she was by herself. And Jesus was sitting there, and he began to talk to her. Now, that was a no-no in that day. Men just don't go around talking to a Samaritan, especially a Jewish person would never talk to a Samaritan woman. And what was happening with him, he wasn't looking at her personality. He wasn't looking at her skin color. He wasn't looking at her traditions. He wasn't looking at what everybody else in that town thought about her. He saw her heart. He saw her heart. God sees your heart. God sees my heart. And he's right here, ready and willing to talk with us. Talk with us. And he asked the lady, he said, would you give me a drink of water? And she says, what in the world are you doing speaking to me? What are you doing talking to me? I'm a Samaritan woman. And he said, well, if you knew who you were talking to, you would be asking me, would I give you a drink? Would I give you a drink of water? Her intellect clicked in. You want to give me a drink of water? He said, yes, if you drink from the waters that I have for you, you'll never thirst again. You'll never thirst again. Have you ever wondered what he was talking about? Never thirst again? Well, there's a spiritual side to us, and there's the earthly part of us. And she was coming from her earthly nature, yet she was always searching for truth. All of us, what are you doing here? That's because what we've been doing. We've been looking for truth. For most of you, you've been in and out of every church there is. You've taken classes. You're trying to find that peace within you, that to understand who God is. Who am I? And Jesus had the answers. And Jesus was right there with her. He said, that I can give you, you'll never hunger. He didn't say hunger, but remember the disciples had gone out to get meat. So I believe what he offers us, we never hunger or thirst again. But as you come to it on an intellectual level, how can this be? How can this be? And this is where the woman was at. She said, you're saying that you'd give me to drink and I'd never thirst again? I'd like you to give that to me. But I can tell you don't even have anything to draw up water with. What are you saying this about? So intellectually, she's very smart. She recognized, hey, there's no earthly way you can hand over water. You're talking about giving me water from Jacob's well. He wasn't talking about an earthly well. He was talking about something, a well that goes much, much deeper than anything on this earth. A flow of energy that is more powerful than anything on this earth, because what he was speaking of is what was within him that he's willing to offer to her. So she was trying to consider what all he's talking about. And he said, well, go get your husband and bring him to me. He said, we'll talk about these things. She said, I have no husband. I have no husband. And he said, yes, you do. He said, you've had 5 husbands. And the one you're with right now is not your husband. What was he talking about? She looked at him and she said, well, I've already perceived that you're a prophet. I've perceived that. I can see that about you. But I don't understand what you're talking about this living water. And what he was speaking to her about was, he knew she had 5 husbands. She'd already had 5 husbands, and the one she's with now she's not really joined to it at a deep level. The 5 husbands represent our 5 senses, that she has been wed all this time to something outside of herself, always looking, searching, trying to see something more that's out there in the world that she could bring to herself, that would fill that hole in her heart, that desire for love, for attention, for closeness, for unity, for oneness. And she just couldn't find it outside of herself. He said, but you have another one that you're with right now, but you're not close, you're not wed to it. What was he talking about? It's that 6th sense, that intuition, that she came to that place. She was longing so much to have spiritual understanding, that she found herself journeying to the well at that time where no one was there but her and Jesus. The living Christ in him was offering to her something deeper. He was saying, I have that to give to you. And this is where we're standing in this day and this time. We're standing at a place of being offered something deeper than anything outside of ourselves, something deeper and more true than anything we've ever known. The true knowledge and the true flow of spirit. And she begins to ask him questions. She said, I want to know more about spirit. I want to know about that connection. I want to know about what you're talking about. And she said, but can you tell me if you are the prophet, you are this prophet of this day, or you came here to help? Tell me, where do I worship? Do I worship on this mountain, that mountain? Where do I turn? Where do I go? Some say we do this. Some say we do that. Some say we do the other. Are we not still in that same place? Come, let's worship here. Oh no, only this church, this synagogue, this place is the only true place to worship. He said, no, the day will come that you will worship in spirit and you will worship in truth, because God is spirit. God is truth. We had to go on this long journey that we've been on, searching for the truth, before we come to that place of, like that deer panting after water, thirsty, longing for something more than we've ever found before, until we began to meet with that voice within. That voice that says, come unto me, all ye that are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Learn of me, for I am meek and lowly, but in me you will find peace. Come, unite yourself with the Christ. That which is within me is what he's saying. The divine presence that I found, you can find also. And when that artesian well begins to come up from within you, It's beyond intuition. It's revelation. It's knowing. And in that knowing that is right here, right now, in this age for us, you begin to know truth. We look around. I can't tell anymore at this point. Sometimes who's right and who's wrong. Listen to one friend long enough, or one station, or someone else. There's just so mixed energies and chaos and everything. How can you sort the truth out? I can say, I have my truth, or I think I have the truth. But I even lay that on the altar of my heart and say, God, you reveal to me what is right. You show me the way. You show me the truth. Because I recognize the carnal mind, the natural mind, only has within it the intellect, the intellectual part where we can argue all day long. And that's what she was doing, kind of arguing with him, saying, this is what I've been told. This is what I know. I know you don't have a way to give me living waters. I can reason that out. Where's your bucket? Where's your pail? Where? But when truth starts coming to you, you begin to recognize it when it's coming from the inside. You have it in you. You have it in you. I know without a shadow of a doubt, every single one of us has the truth of God, truth of divinity, truth of Christ within us. I no longer have a need to try to tell you anything. My personality doesn't. I don't have a need to try to change anybody in this world, because I recognize it's the spirit within that does the work. The spirit within that does the work. I was talking to a minister years ago, and he said, I've met some of the people that come to your church, and they seem uplifted. They seem, to have a peace about them. He said, but are you taking them in a wrong direction? He said, you don't have altar calls every Sunday. I know you don't. You don't have altar calls. What's wrong with you? And I said, the altar is open anytime. But the true altar is in the altar of your own heart. When you feel the call, just go within. Go within. We'll pray with you. We'll be here for you. Any of us will with each other. But I'm not here to call somebody to an altar. That's God's job. That's the Holy Spirit's job. Because if I move you with something that I say and it's only coming from my mouth or my intellect, how long is it going to last? How long will it last? I got that when I was a little girl. I would go to Oral Roberts, Billy Graham's, cathedrals, all these huge places, lots and lots of people. And they would give the altar call, and people would come pouring down. And I would look back at the church that I was going to at that time, and I recognized every Sunday, just about the same people went down to the altar. To me, when I turn my heart over to God and I'm truly walking that path, I don't need to go down every Sunday, because I'm walking and talking with the divine, and you are too, every day. You don't want to go back on that old path. You want to keep going forward, pressing forward to the high calling of Christ in you. That is the hope of glory. That's taken all these ages where we fall down and we get up. We fall down and we get up. We have to keep getting up every time we slip and reaching out for the master's hand. But you don't need somebody else telling you what to do, because what you hear from somebody else, or somebody tells you what to do, demands for you to do, drags you someplace to do something, it's not going to work. It has to be your heart open, your mind open, your beingness open to that calling of spirit. And when you hear the words of the Christ in you speaking to you, you never want to leave that. You never want to leave that. You want to begin to allow those things to fall away from you that will allow more of the Christ in you to begin to fill your whole beingness. Your whole beingness. That's the whole spirit of the living God in you. You say that you can't reach that place. You can't be to that place where Jesus was. Well, that's not what Jesus taught. He came from the Father. He said, as those come from the above, so is below. He came into this world from the higher dimensions. You did too. We've just forgotten it. And now it's time to lift ourselves up in this place, in this time, to begin to be the best that we can be for us, for ourselves, that you can be an example for others to awaken within them. We want everybody to do what we do. We want people to follow us. We want this, that, and the other. But what's wanting it is our personality or our ego self. The ego wants these things. You begin to know when you're coming into true praise and worship, when that, it doesn't matter that, it just doesn't matter. You want to bless everybody, and you want everybody to be blessed the way you've been blessed. You begin to really want to live that golden rule of doing unto others as they do unto you, as you do unto others as you would have them do unto you. What's happening in this time, we're beginning to see. We want others to do good unto us, but we'll turn around and not do good to them. Have you ever experienced that? That you want the goodness, but you're not really willing to give the goodness. We're in a time of true forgiveness. Just felt that. Standing in a time of true forgiveness. The woman had to forgive everything in her past to truly understand what Jesus, the Christ, was saying to her. She had to forgive herself for every action, thought, and feeling she had that she felt was not good enough, was not pure enough, was not kind enough. And opening up to the divine within herself, she can find that purity, that forgiveness, that peace. But it doesn't just stop there. We have to forgive those that have trespassed against us. I found myself, I was sharing with someone this morning. It seems like I keep getting deeper and deeper each week of having to look at something that I kind of overlooked. So Wednesday was, been a long time ago, 34 years since my 20-year-old son at that time was killed in an automobile accident. And I'd heard gossip that the young man was just playing in this big, huge truck and just thought he had run over this little car that my son had just got, just to see if he could hit it, jump over it, or whatever, that would be fun. And of course, my son lost his life. However it happened, that's just the story of it. You know, I wasn't there. I don't know how it happened. But yet this week I found myself standing in my mind's eye in front of this young man. And I felt heaviness. I felt I wanted to ask him why. But back then he was 20 years old. We do strange things when we're youngsters. But in that time of spending in his energy and in my son's energy, I had to make peace with that. And my son began to tell me it was their karma to come together then. And he had learned the lessons that he needed to learn. And then he had told me several years before that, he said, "Mom, I feel like I'm at a time and space." He said, "I feel like I'm here on earth for you. And I feel like in later years, I'll work with you. And I'll help you know more about spiritual things." And he said, "Please forgive me." As soon as he said that, He said, because I respect you, Mother. I respect you. He said, but we have work to do years from now, but I don't feel like I belong here. He said, he said, I think you should leave Dad someday. And he said, when you do, he said, I'm going to. And he said, and all will be well. I said, you're not talking about suicide or anything. He said, no. So he even told me before this young man had run into him, he said, Mother, do you know? And he called his name. I said, yes, but I haven't seen him in years since he's grown up. I wouldn't know him if I saw him. He said, be very, very careful when you pull out of the driveway. He said, make sure you look both ways. He said he loved to drive fast. And if you're in his way, he just might run right over you. He said, I do not want to see you have an automobile accident. He said, please be cautious. That was the very young man that ran into him. But he went on explaining to me that he had things to do. When I spoke with him this week, my son, I felt his presence and the information was coming in. He said, I had things to do in other levels. And he said, now you're beginning to see things I told you came true. And I asked him some questions, and he said, he laughed, and he said, guess what, Mom? You can look that up on the web. So, and it was true. The thing I was asking, I didn't know anything about it, but he had talked about it. And it was on the web where I could understand. He told me that he came from the sun. He said, I saw you before while you were carrying me in your womb. He said, I've been watching over you, and I don't know why I'm saying all this stuff. But he said, I've been watching over you. He said, I felt your goodness. I felt your love. He said, I felt your stress. And he said, I came to you. And he said, you were laying out in the edge of the woods on a blanket, and you had lemons, and you were cutting a hole in it and putting salt in it and eating the lemons. I couldn't do that right now. But I really wanted lemons with salt back then for some reason. And he said, the reason you were back there is because you didn't want grandmother to come over to the house and see you eating lemons with salt in them. He was totally right. Nobody ever knew that. He was telling me this when he was about 14. And no one ever knew that. And he said, I came riding on a chariot of fire. And he said, I could feel your love for me. And he said, I'm so blessed to be with you. He said, and I said, riding a chariot of fire? He said, yes, I came from the sun. I said, do you mean the sun? That's too hot. Nobody could be there. Here's my carnal mind coming in. And he said, I came from what is known as the central sun. At that time, he could not have known. I don't think there wasn't an internet or anything. So logically, my mind says, how could he have known that? But how could he have known what I did? So I did look up the central sun to see what that's about. And I'd forgotten for a moment when I was talking to him that as in my intellect, we are spiritual beings, as Jesus said. When you're not in this body, you are still spirit, you are still consciousness, and you are somewhere, someplace. And that's what I'm beginning to even expand on more. So no one physically has to come to you to teach you something. As you're being still, we're in an energy field with divine energy and frequencies all around us. Everything is a frequency. Everything comes from light. We are light beings. So as you begin to go in your heart and search for truth, the truth is going to be revealed to you. To you. Then you may have somebody say something and it'll click because the intellect wants to know. The intellect wants to know. So the things I'm sharing with you, it's not to get you to believe in a spirit world or only the physical world or multiple universes. Because one day we're going to know. One day we're going to feel it. We're going to know it. But while we're walking in these lower vibrations, it can give you peace where you don't have to fear anything that's going on out there or in here. We're going to begin to see ourselves, and we'll be working on our inner self. We'll be working on us. And I suppose most of us have had loved ones that have passed on. I was taught that it's evil to speak to anybody else in spirit. Well, even if you're telling me that, you know somebody else is out there in spirit that can talk to me. But when your loved ones pass on, so often you do hear from them. They do show up in some form or fashion to give you a little message of letting you know, I still live on, or I still love you, whatever that might be. I have friends that have written books, wonderful books about conversations with family members that give truth and understanding. And so as we're in this energy right now, and especially for the next weeks to come, there's a very thin veil between this world and the others. And it's going to continue to get thinner and thinner, where we can pick up the frequencies from each other. Not to scare you at all, but to lift you up, to give you peace, to recognize that life is eternal. And when we're finished with this chapter in life, most of us fear death. We fear leaving these bodies. But if you ever get in touch with somebody that has left the body, 9 out of 10, you're going to find out it's a great joy. Their work has been completed here. They're gone on to experience another level of awareness. And that when they come back, hopefully they can remember. Up to this point, most of us don't remember any of our past lives. It would be too heavy. It's heavy enough dealing with this one, isn't it? But we're going to start putting the pieces together and recalling things. And we'll know that we're on that perfect path that will lead us, that high place in consciousness right here, right now, in a physical form. Jesus did it. He came in showing us the way to do it. We are here to help each other through this time, to be overcomers within our own self, within our own heart and our own mind of everything that we face, knowing there is a higher way. I don't have to beat you up. I don't have to throw nasty words at you to try to make a point that I think I'm right and I think you're wrong. And I put that in, I think. You think. It's for us to do that work that we came to do. I recognize each of us may have something different to do, but I'm seeing that our high calling is to be kind and loving and respectful. So this is why all this stuff is here. This is a test. See it coming by. This is only a test. Are we going to graduate? Will we go into higher consciousness and have it here and now? If I judge you, if I hate you, if I want to hurt you in any way, I can't enter into that straight and narrow path. You know, Jesus said there's a straight and narrow path. Very few will find it. Very few will find it. Why? Because I won't leave my bitterness behind. I won't leave my hate behind. I won't leave my arrogance behind. I won't leave my ego self behind. All that is baggage all around me that cannot go through that place only the pure soul can go. The message on earth right now is that same message that John the Baptist came teaching. That of purification, that of baptizing, not baptizing with water this time, but being baptized with that whole Spirit of God. And John even went through that process, the symbology of saying, going against that outer world to the point of where he had to have his head cut off. Remember? That symbology is the intellect has to go. The intellect will steal wisdom, knowledge, and all that's there. It's there. Everything's there. But to truly go into that higher place where you are lifted up, if I be lifted up, it's not the personality being lifted up. It's not the flesh being lifted up. It's the I am present, the Christ in you being lifted up in you. Where that light of who you are is more powerful than the flesh that you wear. That love will forgive and release, because what we're sending out to every person is going to begin to bounce back very quickly. I ask, how can this keep going on? And all of a sudden there was a big boom like energy. And it's what you send out is coming back. So if I'm projecting to you self-righteousness, whatever, I can't get the words to come up, but anything that is, if I'm projecting to you something that is not true, it will come back to me. Whatever we're doing out in the outer world or sending to the outer world, and you're pretending, so many pretenders are around, that I'm doing something to help you. And really, in reality, they're not. If you met some people like that out there today, the light's going to show. Whether it's me, you, politicians, the man on the street, the woman down the grocery store, whatever we're doing, the light is beginning to evolve at such a rate that you're going to see the truth. We're going to reveal our own self. We can't pretend anymore. We can't keep pretending. How long this will take, I don't know. I don't know. It could happen overnight. But we're going to begin to see. That's how we're going to be known as we're known. I'm going to know your heart. You're going to know my heart. And it doesn't matter what the personality has done. When your heart has met the Christ of your being, and you begin to work on that relationship, that's when you begin to become a new creature. As the Bible says, that all old things will pass away. All things within you will begin to pass away that's of lower vibration. And behold, all things will become new. All things will become new. The best is yet to come, folks. The best is yet to come. So if somebody's trying to dominate you, somebody's trying to control you, if it's in your own household, you need to take a look at it. You need to take a look. Maybe it's time to step aside and be somewhere else. But if someone is trying to control you in other areas and just trying to make you fear, because fear is the way of control. Fear is how control takes over. You have the control of your life. You have the choices for your own life. Know that truth. Know that truth. Well, what's going to happen to me if I do. Whatever's in your pattern will happen. Whatever it takes for you to become stronger. Whatever it is for you to learn. you'll begin to see it from here. But the thing that Jesus called for and is still calling for is for you to be at peace and fear not. Why wouldn't I fear? Because I am with you, 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 you. The I am is within all of you. That's what you call yourself. I am. And so it is. Peace, love, blessings. God is with you. Find the joy. Find the peace. Find the celebration that this day brings for you. Find that love for humanity and for the world. The world will bless you, not the outer world, but planet Earth will bless you, will nurture you. Think of what happened to Jesus when he was going through that. He was in that Garden of Gethsemane. He knew what he was going through. The flesh was going to be going through some pain and suffering. And where was he nurtured? In the arms of Mother Nature. He was held there. I could see him just resting in some soft place as he's looking up to heaven. And then the angels came. Divine presence, divine ideas. And he knew all was well. All was well. You can overcome also. You will overcome. Peace and love and blessings. Namaste. I truly behold the Christ in you, speaking to that deep place in you, calling forth that Christ. Come and be seen here and now in you. Barbara, would you like to close?
We have another hymn this morning that we can participate in. It's called Sweet Hour of Prayer. This is one of my very favorite hymns. It's an oldie goldie. It's on page 88, Sweet Hour of Prayer. Sweet hour of prayer, sweet hour of prayer, enfolded in the presence rare Can we join together this morning with our peace song?
Well, let's let the ushers come first. Okay, see? Okay,
I jumped ahead.
that's fine. And you want to start us with our prayer then? The ushers would please come. As we bless it together. Up through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I am grateful.